Good evening, traders. Welcome back. In this video, what I'd like to do is show you the all-new gap finder indicator for the community scripts inside of the Tickblaze platform. Now, gaps can be a very, very good way to identify trade locations because almost always the market tends to want to come back to fill those gaps due to the order flow imbalance. Now, depending on the market that you're trading, whether it's stocks or futures, the market may or may not gap, right? You often see gaps in the stock market, and normally that's a result of the overnight trading session either moving above or below the prior day's close. So let me kind of break this down for you. When the market trades in the overnight session, also known as the Globex session, in either the Asian or the Australian session, the Aussie session, or maybe even in the European and London session, by the time the US market opens, the markets could either gap up or down. That's why you always see stocks gapping off the New York Open. But in futures and other asset classes, the market doesn't normally trade on a restricted time schedule, right? There is normally 23 hours a day trading or even 24 hours a day trading. And so gaps will often be found in other markets, more predominantly like stocks. You will see them on some futures markets like the natural gas contracts, right? And or other futures markets. One way that you can actually see them in futures is if you were to ultimately change the session from RTH to ETH, and I'll show you how to do that in just a second. But if you're new to Tickblaze and you don't know what a community script is, we have a community where we post open source scripts for all of our members. It's one of the benefits of being a part of our community. And you can actually go down below this video. There's a link. You'll be able to actually click on it. It'll bring you into the community. You'll be able to access a description of the software. You'll be able to see the source code. If you're a developer, you could extend on the software, build a little bit more into it, or maybe improve it, or even take it to your own wishes, if you will. And but if you're not a developer and you're a trader like myself, you can just import the zip. And you can ultimately just follow along in this video and we can set the settings up and then you can understand how to use it. Okay, so let's start with stocks because it's the easiest one to describe, right? Stocks, there's always going to be gaps, right? The market's going to gap up, the market's going to gap down. Let's just take this example for a second, right? Let's take a look at this one. This is a really great example right here. Okay, this is a gap and go, right? And what this means is the market gapped up. There was the close of the prior day session. The market gapped up, okay, just like that, or gapped up here, traded down and closed, okay? But this software will identify that gap, right? And it'll plot a zone on your chart. And you'll see how the market comes up and then it comes back down to try to fill that gap. It tried to fill the gap here. It didn't quite fill it. There was still a little bit of a leftover gap there to fill. But the software will identify that. And as the market trades, you can see there's a gap here that didn't quite fill. But the market always tends to come back to want to fill this gap. Like this one gapped up and then it came all the way back down to fill it. See how this one came all the way over here? It did come back down to fill that gap and then eventually succeeded. Then the market gapped up and then automatically filled that gap, right? Same thing, the market gapped up and then automatically filled it, right? The market always tends to want to fill the gaps right away normally. If it doesn't, it's a gap and go and it basically takes off. But if you take a look, what the software allows us to do is it allows us to look at prior levels. So if you go back and you take a look, we can go back and see fresh gaps on or off. That means any new gaps that have not been traded into. If they're tested, we'll be able to see that on the other chart. But broken, if you take a look, you can turn them off. These are all the gaps that have been filled. So if you don't want to see the filled gaps, you can turn them on or off, and the software will allow you to do that. It's a very intuitive drop-down menu that allows you to control the settings of the software. Okay, now let's go over here and take a look at our friend Mr. Natural Gas on the futures markets. Now you can see that the market doesn't have any fresh gaps, but it does have a couple tested gaps. And those tested gaps mean that the market traded into them but didn't completely fill them. And normally, by nature, these will fill. And so these are actually great trading opportunities, have they been left unattended. But what I did to see this is I'm going to change it to a regular trading hour. We're going to switch it back. Okay, you're going to see different settings. So take a look at this for a second. Now, this is an RTH template. An RTH template means regular trading hours, which means it's not including the overnight. So you can see that there's still gaps that need to be filled from prior trading sessions that were not allocated in the overnight session. Now, if you go here and you take a look, you can take fresh, there's a gap that has to be filled here. This has not been traded into. These are tradable opportunities, and we will often see these in futures. A lot of traders don't know to look for that. Let's take a look at the ES for a second. Let's go back at a very, very famous futures contract. Let's go into it. And I'm going to right click and it says switch to ETH. I don't know if there's any futures gaps that need to be traded here. Let's go back and take a little bit of a look back here. Let's go back to say 2 months. Let's go back and see if there's any gaps that weren't filled. No, they were all filled already. And let's go back here and switch to ETH. Let's take a look here. Yeah, you can see the market, closes these gaps quite heavily. Futures, there's not a lot of gaps, right? Stocks, you'll see a lot of gaps. You might see it in crude oil though. Let's go take a look at crude oil. You might see some gaps in the old crude market here. I'm going to switch it to an RTH template. And let's go here to switch to an RTH template. Yeah, see crude gaps. Energy markets tend to gap a lot, right? And you can see there's a fresh gap that hasn't been filled. These are great trading locations. You can take a look here. The market gapped up and came back down, tested that gap in support. It was a very big support level. You can see this market gap down, right? And then traded into it and then came back up and acted as resistance. Now, most futures traders aren't going to trade gaps because they're going to trade a non-gappy market. But if you're interested in taking a look at it on multiple markets, you can do that. You're not going to see that on crypto. The markets don't close on crypto, so there's very little gaps. And Forex, very rarely will you see that. But if you ultimately are interested in trading it on stocks or futures, you can do so. Now, when you go into the indicator, all you got to do is just come in and just, you can change the settings. This is basically just, there's a restriction in here. What we do is we don't allow gaps to be over a certain amount of size. You can do that. And if you just want to leave it as the default, we just suggest leaving it at the default. It's pretty straightforward. But you can go down here and you can change the colors of the zones if you choose to. You can change the shading, the opacity for fresh, tested, or broken. And that way you can basically set the software up the way you'd like to use it, okay? Now the gap finder indicator is a very a basic tool. It's not meant to do anything special other than to locate gaps in the market, but it's often fun to use because it's a pain in the butt to go back and try to find where the market gapped and didn't fill, right? And especially for the stock market traders out there, if you're a stock trader, this will be extremely valuable to you because if you're a gap fill trader or a gap and go trader, or if you're just looking at imbalances that need to be paid attention to, this, I promise you, will be a really, really good tool to have on your charts, okay? So if you haven't done so already, click below and you can ultimately get the link to the community script page. Get social with us, leave a comment below in the video, and if you'd like some more detailed training on gap strategies, maybe for the stock market or for other asset classes, just let us know and we'd be more than happy to put together some form of advanced workshops and some training, and we'd be more than happy to go over them with you. Okay, traders, have fun with the gap finder, and we'll see you in the next video. Take care.